It all started with episode 0 of Sejan's podcast, where the first couple minutes caught my attention quickly.
Okay, so do you want to tell them what the song is from? Because I think a lot of people probably don't know.
That is from the Korean version of Guilty Gear #Reload. That's where that song is from. Not only is it from the Korean version, but it is Zappa's theme called Seizures. And if you guys do not know, Daisuke did not do the music for Guilty Gear Korean version, not Reload the Korean version. It was outsourced and it was done by a band led by a woman. It's actually godlike. I actually have, shout out to my boy Scott, I actually still have the CD pack that comes with the Korean version of the game.
Do you know the name of the band who did it?
I cannot remember off the top of my head. I can't remember the name of the band.
I can't believe you know more about the Guilty Gear Korean soundtrack than I know about anything in my life.
I'm just saying, bro, you have to.
And it's not close.
Tasty Steve was almost correct. The song is called Seizures, Zappa's theme from the Korean OST of Guilty Gear XX Reload, which was created by a different band. The band's name was N.EX.T, which stood for New Experimental Team. And the band was led by a man, not a woman, and he was one of the most influential and powerful Korean musicians of all time, Shin Hae Chul. So you're probably wondering who's Shin Hae Chul and why is he so significant? Well, as a brief history summary, Shin Hae Chul always had a knack for creating new and experimental music for his era. Take for instance the song that's playing right now, To You, or Hudeyege in Korean, which was made by his college band Infinite Orbit, or Muhangredo in Korean. This song was nationally televised for the 1988 MBC Campus Festival and won first place due to just how different it was compared to other songs in the festival. It was loud, confident, energetic, and something you hear blasting at a stadium. It was a stark contrast to most of the songs, playing it safe with slow ballads. But Shin Hae Chul wanted to create something fun and memorable, as To You would later become one of the most memorable songs in Korea. Now we move on to 1992, where Shin's new rock band N.EX.T was formed. N.EX.T produced multiple rock-based albums that were gradually gaining in popularity, such as Home, The Return of N.EX.T Part 1, The Being, and Part 2, World, and Lazenka, a space house opera. N.EX.T would split up and later reform in 2003 to produce something that Tasty Steve would very well know today, the Korean soundtrack for Guilty Gear XX Reload. Guilty Gear XX Reload is the first update to Guilty Gear XX, with a complete Korean dub for the Korean version of the game. And the voice actor for Testament was Shin Hae Chul.
여기가 젤리피쉬로군. 어떻게 된 거야? 디지는 어디 있지?
피할 수 있겠나? 어디 덤벼봐라. 얌전히 물러서라. 나이트야,
That's his smooth, silky voice, which portrayed the character quite perfectly. Shin had a liking towards Testament, so much that he wanted to compose his own theme for the character. He went to Arc System Works to ask if he could do so, and the company made him an offer that he could not refuse. Arc Sys offered him to compose an entire soundtrack for the Korean version of the game, and he accepted it. It was a win-win situation for both sides. Arc Sys noticed that Shin and his band N.EX.T were known to make powerful rock music that was popular in Korea, and with his popularity could increase the exposure and sales of Guilty Gear. For Shin, it was a perfect time to get the band together and develop an alternative soundtrack. Compared to Daisuke Ichiwatari's soundtrack, N.EX.T composed something much more focused on rhythm rather than melody. The soundtrack was also released separately as a 2-disc compilation, which is what Tasty Steve was referring to. As the band reformed, certain tracks from the Guilty Gear soundtrack were reworked into songs with vocals for their following album, The Return of N.EX.T Part 3. As it is, I'm playing favorites. Guilty Gear is my favorite fighting game franchise, and Shin Hae Chul is my favorite musician. So back when I made this discovery, I was surprised. It was a welcoming crossover that made me realize its significance. If this niche soundtrack is what gets people to listen to Shin Hae Chul and N.EX.T, I'm all for it. Unfortunately, Shin Hae Chul passed away due to medical malpractice undergoing surgery in 2014. He was 46 years old. His music style was unmatched, creating all kinds of music ranging from pop, rock, metal, jazz, and even a cappella. Yet his legacy lives on, and television shows are still playing his music. In 2019, an unreleased track called My Father and Me Part 3 was exclusively performed in a drum recital by Yoo Jae-suk, Korea's biggest entertainment host. And now, Guilty Gear Strive is adding songs from the Korean OST, 18 years after the release of the soundtrack. If you enjoy Daisuke's music, then I highly recommend you listen to Shin Hae Chul and N.EX.T. Although his music is usually rock-based, there's a wide variety of genres that are worth listening to. In fact, every single played in the video is from him. If you want to get started, I'll provide some links down in the description, such as a Spotify playlist I created. Although it does not include his whole discography, I added every single song by him and his band that I could find on Spotify. Korean Music Translator has been translating his music. I'll link a playlist down below as well. If you have stuck around to the end or checked out his discography, I just want to say thanks. Guilty Gear has got to be one of the most unique ways to spread his music around, as I have done so before. I absolutely love the music from Shin Hae Chul and N.EX.T. After all, my username and profile pic is from them. I hope you enjoy the music you'll come across in-game or on streaming services. Lastly, shout out to Tasty Steve for giving me the spark to make this video out of a single reference. Keep spreading the word of the Korean Guilty Gear soundtrack.
삶이 끝날 때까지 언제